out before we get started with the ADU information. I'm just going to do a quick intro. I'm Paul Deshevsky with a company called Great Builds. Great Builds was founded about a year ago. My partner and I decided that it was just too hard for people to find a contractor, a good general contractor for projects like ADUs, garage conversions, major renovations at their house. People either found contractors one of two ways. They either were recommended by a friend, and that's a good way to find someone that they've used, or they had to start searching online. We thought the first way is great. The second way is not ideal. There's over 20,000 general contractors here in LA County alone, licensed general contractors. So that was not an ideal way to do it. So what Great Builds is a free service here in LA that connects people that need to renovate or with major construction projects with contractors that have been thoroughly vetted and screened. And we match those two up, and then we stay involved through the whole process to make sure that everyone has a good experience. So kind of a matchmaker for homeowners and quality contractors. So that's what we do. Been getting a ton of requests for contractors and information about ADUs. So we thought this was a good time and a good topic to tell people about, because there's a lot of information. We're going to talk about ADUs. We're going to talk about cost savings. That's the thrust of the ADU conversation today. Thursday, we'll be having another webinar that's more of an overarching discussion about ADUs. What are the regulations that have changed? Who's doing it in LA? What do the numbers look like? Just more of an overarching, what can you do? What can you not do? So if you're interested in that, in ADUs from that standpoint, then join us on Thursday, and we'll send out the information on that. It's going to be at 10:30. Okay, I'm going to jump in. I think everybody's on. I'm going to jump in and screen share with you guys. So, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, so let's jump into the presentation. We're going to do. I'll probably take about 20 minutes, and then again, if you have questions along the way, just please go ahead and ask them in the pane on the right side, and I will be able to answer all the questions that you have, whether they're pertinent or not, about contractors, construction, or ADUs. Just go ahead and ask them. Okay, so I did a quick intro. Let's talk briefly before we jump into how to save costs, what you're looking at in terms of costs if you're looking at doing an ADU. Now, when we talk about ADUs, we can talk about one of two things. We can talk about taking a current garage, an existing garage, and converting that. And we can talk about building an ADU from scratch if you don't have an existing structure. So if you have an existing garage, you have the main components. It's going to cost you about $70,000 to $100,000 to convert to a full living space, like your home. You could do a little bit better than that. And certainly there are contractors that are a lot more expensive than that, but that's what we've seen most bids come in at for that. When you're talking about building a new ADU, you're really talking about building a small home from scratch. You really should be thinking about $300 to $400 a square foot. You can kind of see the breakdown there. For the smaller ones, it's certainly going to cost less, but on a per square foot basis, it's going to be more expensive, right? Because as you get bigger, it'll get cheaper because you're not adding another kitchen or another bathroom. You're just adding things like drywall, flooring. So there's economies of scale. So for the smaller ones, it's going to cost you less money, but more on a per square foot basis. You can see price per square foot goes up as you get bigger, but there's some cost savings there. So the process is, if you want to do a garage conversion, you start with the design, whether an architect or a contractor that defines you an architect. You go through the city's plan check process. It can be short, but it can't be more than 60 days. That's the max. You get your bids, and then construction, probably about 2 months, 3 months on the outside, but really 2 months is about right. So the whole process, probably 3 to 4 months, maybe up to 6. If you're doing a new ADU, it's essentially the same process. The construction is going to take a while longer. There's a lot more to do. You should probably be looking at 6 to 7 months, maybe 9 on the outside. So a couple of first steps you can take. You can either hire an architect, or you can just start meeting with contractors to get an idea, start getting some ideas for costs, and then they'll usually bring in a designer or vice versa. But it's a good idea to sort of have both kind of going at the same time. The architect and the designer is actually going to talk to you and work with you about your plan, and the contractor is more knowledgeable about costs, so it's good to have them involved early. When you're thinking about a new ADU, not a garage conversion, you really want to think about a few things. What size and what is the design? What's the layout going to look like depending on what it is that you're going to use it for? Are you using it for in-laws? Are you using it for a studio? Or using it for investment purposes? So you start with that. You start thinking about materials, and we'll talk a little bit about materials and how to save costs. But what are the materials? You can talk to your contractor. What are the materials that we can use that will save us costs, or vice versa? What are some things that are important for me to have? Fencing, right? This is something that people don't think about, especially if they want to create privacy. If the ADU is for a tenant, for another family, you want to create some privacy. So you need to start thinking about how to create that yard space for you and for that ADU. And then a major thing, we'll talk a little more about this, is, again, it's a house, so it needs all the utilities: sewer, water, electric, gas, potentially. And that's a major thing to get utilities there. So that's something to start thinking about. But the garage conversion is a little bit different. You already know where you're at. You know the size. So there's things you already have and you don't have. And people ask, well, why is it so expensive? But with regard to converting a garage to an ADU, the fact is there are some things you have: your foundation, your floor, your walls, your roof. But there's a lot that you don't have to make it a living space. You don't have really a sewer line or plumbing or a water heater, right? You need that. Any interior walls, windows, doors. You want to create, you want to make it comfortable, so you need some kind of HVAC, heating and air. Electrical, and lighting. You don't really have enough there, so you need to bring it all in. And then, of course, you got to build a new kitchen, bath, flooring. So there's a lot to do. All right, here's my first tip. We're going to jump right into it. So don't use tile. Tile is an expensive material to use, because it itself is expensive. It can be, it doesn't have to be. But really, more than that, it's the labor. It takes quite a bit of labor. If you've ever seen tile being laid, it's sort of a craftsman. A lot of guys can do framing, but not that many laborers, if you will, or tile guys can do quality tile. And so it's an expensive trade, and it's very, very time consuming to put in. Just to lay one shower is like 2 days of work, 3 days of work for a tile guy. So what's the options? If you're not going to use any tile, what do? You generally have tile in your shower, your bath, right? But you don't have to. You can see in the picture, that's a fiberglass vinyl shower surround. They come in a single piece, and maybe they're not quite as beautiful as tile, but these days they're more and more attractive. So that's a single piece. It goes on in 10 minutes instead of days and days with tile, and it lasts and it looks great. Usually your bathroom floor is tile. People used to use linoleum, things like that. It's kind of ugly, but there's a product now called I think they call it a luxury vinyl, whatever. It's a nice vinyl tile, and it looks like wood grain, and it's a good idea to use that throughout the ADU, and you could run it into the bathroom as well. So your bathroom floor, you can use the same high-end vinyl tile, vinyl planks, because it's not tile, it's laid just like flooring, and it's quick, and it's a lot less expensive. And then the last thing is that people use with regards to tile is a kitchen backsplash, and you don't really need to tile that. You can use the same material that you're using on your countertops. Just use a 6-inch backsplash. Again, it'll save you money. So right there, you're saving thousands of dollars potentially just with tile. If you don't, tip number 2, you don't necessarily need to run gas line and a gas meter and things like that. It'll save you some money because you're going to have to run that line directly from your main gas meter. So if you go all electric, you really need to think about the 3 things that you're going to go electric with, if you don't mind. And there's certainly lots of products out there. You're going to go with an electric range, right? You're going to go with an electric clothes dryer. Both of those are usually gas. And same thing with a water heater. You can buy an electric water heater. That's normally gas. So you'll definitely save yourself some money, but you want to make sure all these appliances are ones that you're willing to live with as an electrical appliance. And the second piece about this that's interesting is if you end up, I don't think it's required yet, but if you end up going solar on your ADU, that'll take care of a lot of all your electrical needs. If you have a big enough solar system, that will take care of your electricity. You might not end up with a bill at all, and you'll certainly not have a gas bill. Okay, tip number 3 is locate your bathrooms and your kitchens such that there's one plumbing wall. If you just take a look at the plan on the right there, you see that on the bottom right, there's your kitchen sink, your range, and then you go straight up and you see your bathroom. Now in this case, as you can imagine, all the plumbing is in that one single wall, and that's really, really efficient and will save you costs. What does that really mean? You have less waste lines. Your toilet, your shower, your kitchen sink, they all run into one line that sits right under that wall, and that gets run inside that wall. Really, really efficient. Same thing with your water lines, your hot, your cold, those are running just inside one wall, and it's terrific. It makes it really easy, efficient, and cost savings. And then what that means is you don't have any plumbing anywhere else. There's nothing under your slab anywhere else. In the other 3 walls, there's nothing. That's just a very efficient way to install plumbing because it's quick, it's easy, and it saves a lot of cost. If you have an existing garage, you don't have to start cutting your slab to put in plumbing. So you can talk to your contractor and your designer more about this, but it's a great cost savings. Just makes your plumbing just a ton more cost effective. Tip number 4 is sewer connection. So the city of LA, and probably most cities, are going to ask you to run your sewer from your ADU and not go through your house sewer, but run it directly and hook up at the front yard in this picture. It's called the private lateral. So they want you to run your line and hook up into your private lateral. So you're running a brand new sewer line, if you will, from your ADU to your front yard. Figuring out where you can run that's cost effective is going to make a difference. If you have to run it in your side yard and you have to run it through concrete, as you can see on the right side, you can see where they had to cut a bunch of concrete out, and then once they finish, they're going to have to put the dirt back and then pour new concrete on top. Try to find a place to run your sewer and your other lines where it's not going through concrete, if at all possible. It's going to cost you a lot more money to cut that concrete and then patch and fix that concrete when you're done. And number 5, some people want to have separate meters for everything: gas, electric, water, for your ADU. Let's say you have a tenant, you want to get them to pay their own utilities, or you want to charge them, so you want to know exactly how much they are using. That costs money. So putting in another electrical meter, putting in another water meter, that's not an insignificant cost. So I'd suggest not doing separate meters. If you want to save money, what you could do, if you want to split utility costs between the main house and the ADU, you could do something called sub-metering. So you can have the contractor put in these little things called sub-meters that will track the usage for you of the ADU. Or you could just do a split, or you could say to your tenant, look, I'm going to charge you $100 per month for water, or a third of the cost because you're a third of the size of my property. So there's other ways to do it, but you could sub-meter it, but installing separate meters is going to be more expensive. I want to just digress a little bit and talk about contractors. If any of you guys are looking to do ADUs or you have clients, this is important. This is sort of what we do on a daily basis, and we want to share with you. There was a recent survey done by one of the big online contractor sites. They surveyed homeowners that finished renovations, and if you can believe it, 52%, so over 50% of homeowners surveyed said they had a negative experience with their remodeling contractor. That's pretty horrid. I mean, that's really not acceptable. And what else is interesting, and I think I mentioned this a little earlier, is LA County has over 20,000 active licensed general contractors. I mean, that's a big number. So if you're just sort of sifting online or just looking in the mail for contractor ABC or XYZ, the odds are kind of against you. You're probably gonna have a bad experience with half of those, sadly. So this is important. So I want to give you some advice based on my experience, and I've been doing this for almost 20 years on finding good contractors. You don't want to hire an unlicensed contractor or handyman. This is a big project. This isn't changing a light bulb. This is building a house. So don't even think about doing that. Some people want to act as their own general contractor and then just sub out all the pieces. You can do that, but I recommend against it. And the reason is you're going to need every sub. So that means, do you know a good electrical sub? Do you know a good flooring sub? Do you know a good kitchen sub? Do you know a good plumbing sub? Do you know a good electrical sub and roofing sub? You better know a bunch of good contractors, and most people don't have 10 or 12 different trades in their back pocket. Don't hire a contractor purely based on their price and your gut feeling about them. Most people meet a contractor once and they say, I really like that contractor, but let's face it, they're on their first date with you, they're on their best behavior, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be good, in the long term, for the long-term relationship. So what we suggest you do is you find a contractor with ADU experience. That kind of makes sense, right? If they've done it before. This is an easy one. You check the contractor state license board, get their insurance docs. You want to make sure there's no derogatory issues on their license. This is where a lot of people fall off. You want to call some references, get some references, call them and see what their experience was. You want to check reviews. That's easy, right? You Google them and make sure that there's not too many bad reviews, not too many negative reviews that you could see would be an issue for you. And then frankly, we go through this process ourselves when we bring in contractors into our network that we recommend. We go through this process and a whole lot more. We have a 10-point vetting process. And this is essentially what we do. We bring them in for a man, and this is what you could do as well. Certainly, we bring them in for a management interview in person. We look at their ratings, check the license board, get their license bond. We do a background check. We review their financials. We make sure they have local expertise. We definitely call references, no question. All the time we call references, and we also, the last thing we do, we make them sign a contractor code of conduct. There's 20 points that we say these are the most important things that you can do as a contractor to make sure your clients are happy. Simple things, basic things like show up for work and make sure you call back within 24 hours and tell your workers to be respectful. So if you want to find that, that's on our site at greatbuilds.com. You could use that for yourself to make sure that the contractor is willing to abide by those things. At least if he's willing to sign it, that's a good start that he will uphold those standards when they come and work for you. Briefly, I'll finish out questions to ask your contractor before they get started. Obviously, we talked about this. Do you have experience? How long have you been licensed? How many projects do you take on at one time? Is this a one project at a time or a 20 project at a time kind of guy? This is a good one to ask because you can see the way they think. What are the issues and extra costs that might come up on a project like this? And if the answer is, I'm sure it'll be fine, that's not really a good answer. Let them prove to you that they have good experience. Who's going to be there day to day? If the person you're talking to is not the owner of the company, but is a salesperson, they might say, well, I'm gone after this. You want to know who will be managing the job. Are they going to help you to select materials or are you kind of on your own? That's a good question to ask. We talked about this, code of conduct, right? And then lastly, things you want to talk about. You want to make sure you're on the same page with working hours. If you have any pets, how to deal with that. Hey, where's the crew going to eat their lunch? Are they going to eat their burrito or their chicken sandwich in your microwave? Is that okay or is it not okay? Same thing with bathrooms. Are they going to use your bathroom? Is there going to be a porta potty? Where are they going to go to the bathroom? As that can create conflict. Is there anywhere that's off limits? Do you need signs on some doors that say, please do not enter? And that needs to be in Spanish as well. Be explicit about your requirements. This one means if you say, I want a light switch on that wall, it will invariably end up in the wrong location. So you need to be extremely explicit on here. I've taped exactly where I want this and exactly where I want that. You always want an alternate person that you can contact if the contractor is busy and an alternate phone number for the contractor. So I want 2 phone numbers for you and I want an alternate contact person that I can reach out to in case you're on a ladder somewhere and you can't answer the call. Some contractors like email, text, phone. That's something you need to be aware of to have a good working relationship. Another one is, where's the crew going to park? Where's the trash bin gonna get put? So just a few questions to keep in mind.